Post-colonialism and hybrid cultural identity. Post-colonialism is simply a lens through which we study literature that is set in colonized countries or deals with the post-colonial issues. These issues include, but are not limited to, issues of identity, culture, politics, and economics. Cultural hybridism is a socio-historical phenomenon that has existed since first human society started moving, resulting in permanent contacts between different groups, in which two cultures interacted, influencing each other at the same time, resulting in a new culture with aspects of both cultures. Identity can be communicated through objects such as photos, albums, artwork, and even food. We communicate through what we wear, our religion, and even our facial features and skin colour. We find these objects useful tools in communicating who we are and where we come from before we even open our mouths. When discussing identity, though, it is common to misjudge who we are by what we look like or what we wear. For example, someone with a lot of tattoos and facial piercings may be dangerous or uncouth, however, this is normally far from the truth. The Immigration Museum is not unlike a standard museum in the way it houses documents and important artifacts. However, its purpose is to encourage us as the viewer to see past the interesting artifacts and look into the stories of why we need an immigration museum, the history of Australia, and our past as a foundling country, and to appreciate where we are today and our multicultural community. This image shows a sign placed within the museum with a quote by Australian comedian Nick Giannopoulos. He is quoted saying, "Wog is in me. I guess I'm the guy who decided to make a point about being called the Wog. I still think the word Wog is racist, and I don't like it coming out of the mouths of those who aren't Wogs." Below the quote is a statement made by the museum. We can turn taunts into words which empower and unite us. We mix and match styles to suit our tastes, interests, and current fads. We skim the surface of some people's cultures to spice up our own. Every day we pick and choose. What used to be an insult becomes a badge of honour. What's exotic to one person is normal to another. We don't have our own symbols, so we borrow someone else's. But does borrowing become stealing? This sign touches on the fact that as humans, we all borrow and recycle other cultures' fashions, totems, food and religious artifacts, etc., and reuse them in any way we feel is suitable for ourselves. But where do we draw the line? When does something become inappropriate or racist or cultural appropriation? The museum helps us to understand where this line is drawn and realise the sensitivity of the subject. This is an image of an Italian family being checked for salami and other contraband in their luggage from the 1950s. This is what many immigrants were forced to endure during this period: categorical racism, in particular to Italian immigrants. This is a topic of special interest to myself, as I too have family members who immigrated to Australia during this time and earlier. They were subjected to prejudice and other derogatory slander for which plagued them for most of their lives. Antonio Sorgato was my great-grandpa. He was born in Italy and emigrated to Australia at 16 with his mother, father and sister. His eldest brother continued to live in Italy. He was a successful musician, playing in orchestras around the world as a cellist and composer. When he was in his 30s, he volunteered to fight for Australia in the Second World War and fought in New Guinea. He had suffered with PTSD as well as dysentery and malaria. He sacrificed his health for Australia, and when he returned home, he was no longer the same man he was when he left. He returned home to a cold welcome from Australia. When he attended his first Anzac Day parade, he was heckled by the crowd and accused of stealing his war medals because of his Italian heritage. He never went to another parade again. The Museum of Immigration is a representation of everything my great-grandpa did for Australia and his treatment during this time. The museum helps to show us that we are a multicultural society and we must be accepting of everyone that arrives into Australia. We can use this experience to help us understand our history within our country and try to amend this country's past mistakes. My great-grandpa loved Australia and he called it home for up to 60 years. Although he was Italian and loved his heritage and where he was born and grew up, Australia was his home. His hybrid cultural identity was of an Italian man, a loving husband, father, and grandpa, and an Australian.